Page 63. Cows and grass, a partnership. Cows have evolved over millions of years to eat grass. It's not a one-sided deal. At the same time, grass have evolved over millions of years to be eaten by cows. This partnership is one of nature's wonders. When a cow eats grass, it doesn't kill the plant. Grasses have evolved so that they can survive being eaten very well, as long as the cows give them a chance to recover. In return from being chewed on, the plant gives help from the cows. The cow protects the grass habitat by eating young trees and shrubs that might compete with the grass. The animal also spreads grass seed, plants it with his hooves, and then fertilizes it with his manure. Only certain animals, including cows, sheep, goats, and bison, can make a meal out of grass. They can do this because they have a special second stomach called a rumen. That's why these animals are called ruminants. The rumen is like a 25-gallon fermentation tank. Here is where the cow gets some help. Inside the tank lives a type of bacteria that dines on grass. The bacteria breaks down the cell walls of the grass and allows the cow to get the protein and carbohydrates within. The plains of the American West, where steer 534 was born, bison and the prairie grass lived together in a partnership for thousands of years. I guess we should include the bacteria in this partnership also. It was a natural solar power loop. The plants used the sun's energy to make food. The bison, with the help of bacteria, ate the grass and in turn planted it, fertilized it, and defended its territory. It was a successful ecological system. A rumen has evolved into the perfect organ for digesting grass, but it is not good at digesting corn. So why is a stern number 534 forced to eat corn instead of grass? The answer is one word: speed. Cattle raised on grass simply take longer to grow than cattle raised on corn. In my grandfather's time, cows were 4 or 5 years old at slaughter. Rich Blair explained to me, in the 50s, when my father was ranching, it was 2 or 3 years old. Now we get them at 14 to 16 months. We get steer for 80 to 1,100 pounds in 14 months. Is a tremendous amount of corn, food supplements, drugs, and fast food indeed. Turn to page 69. Cattle eating cattle. Feedlots are beef factories. Their goal is to turn corn into beef. But corn isn't the only thing that cattle are fed. You might be shocked, as I was, to learn that they are also fed parts of other cattle. That's right, these herbivores, natural plant eaters, are fed meat. For years, leftover beef scraps were ground up and put into cattle feed. After all, it was protein, and cattle needed protein to grow. Then people in England began dying of a sickness called mad cow disease. Mad cow is a brain disease that is always fatal. It is spread by eating the brains of infected animals. Ground up cattle brains were put into cattle feed, and some of those cows got mad cow disease. Human beings who ate infected beef also got the disease, although there were no human cases reported in the United States. The government banned the practice in 1997, but there are some exceptions. As I already noted, beef tallow or fat is one of the ingredients that cows at Pokey will eat. Where does the tallow come from? It comes from other cows that have been sent to slaughter. Though Pokey doesn't do it, the rule also permits feedlots to feed cattle protein from other kinds of animals. Feathered meal and chicken litter, that is bedding, feces, and discarded bits of feed from chicken farms, are acceptable cattle feeds, as are chicken, fish, and pig meal. Some public health experts worry that other diseases like mad cow could start to appear because of this practice. Sick from corn. Compared to all the other things we feed cattle these days, corn seems positively wholesome. Yet feeding corn to cattle goes against the natural order almost as much feeding them beef. During the day at Pokey, I spent a few hours with Dr. Mel Metzen, the staff veterinarian. Dr. Mel, as he's known at Pokey's, runs the team of 8 cowboys. Their job is to ride the yards, dusty streets, spotting sick animals and bringing them into Pokey's 3 hospitals for treatment. From Dr. Mel, I learned that more than any beef eater might want to know about the life of the factory farm steer. Basically, almost all the cattle in the feedlot are sick, and their corn-based diet that makes them ill. They're made to eat forage, Dr. Metz explained, and we're making them eat grain. Forage means grass. The most serious illness is bloat. Remember, there are bacteria in the animal's rumen, and they produce a lot of gas. Usually cattle belch a lot to release the gas, but corn diet causes a condition that keeps the gas from escaping. This is called bloat. The gases in the rumen get trapped, and the rumen inflates like a balloon until it presses against its lungs. To save the animal, a vet must force a hose down the animal's throat to release the gas. Otherwise, the pressure will choke the animal to death. A corn diet also gives cattle acidosis, too much acid in the rumen. Human stomachs are naturally highly acidic. A rumen, however, is naturally neutral or non-acidic. Feeding corn to steer changes the chemistry of the rumen, making it acidic and causing a kind of heartburn that in some cases can kill the animal, but usually just makes them sick. Cattle with acidosis stop eating, panting and drool, paw and scratch their bellies, and eat dirt. This can also weaken the animal, that it can develop a long list of other diseases like diarrhea, ulcers, liver disease, pneumonia, and feedlot polio. Antibiotics for animals. Cattle rarely live on feedlot diets for more than 150 days, which might be about as much as their systems can stand. Over time, the acid eat away at the rumen wall, allowing bacteria to enter the animal's bloodstream. These microbes wind up in the liver. Between 15 and 30% of feedlot cattle have damaged livers. Dr. Mel told me that in the same pens, the figure runs as high as 70%. What keeps a feedlot animal healthy or healthy enough are antibiotics. Most of the antibiotics sold in America today are for animal feed, not for humans. Without these drugs, cattle could not survive. The only reason they need the drug is because they are being raised on factory farms and fed corn. The problem is that in response to antibiotics, the bacteria can mutate or change. They can develop into new types of bacteria that the drugs don't affect. By giving antibiotics to the millions of cattle in the United States, we're actually breeding new superbacteria that can't be killed by antibiotics. I asked Dr. Mel what would happen if drugs were banned from cattle feed. We'd have a high death rate, he told me. We just couldn't feed them as hard. Hell, if you gave them a lot of grass and space, I wouldn't have a job.